All right, so I don't know if you guys probably see fine woodworking, but I wrote an article in the January, February issue, so I'm going to pass these around so you can look at it. Just, I'm sure you guys all would like a picture, of me.
Autograph.
Yeah, autograph. But I guess the start of this article, I was sort of thinking about tables and how strong to make the Tenon, the Mortise and Tenon. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
Get away from the speakers.
Okay, so I was wanting to know how strong to make that Mortise and Tenon in a leg to apron joint. And mainly, if you have a dining table, and a lot of times you're sitting at the table, you go to get up, you push the dining table, and that leg gets pushed on the floor, and there's a lot of force there, and it's a big lever arm, so this joint is taking a lot of abuse. And I don't like my tables real bulky. I mean, yeah, I could make everything real big, and it would hold together pretty well, but I sort of was curious how small I could make this apron and look good, but still be strong enough. So I wrote Fine Woodworking and said I'd like to write an article and test Mortise and Tenon joints and try to figure out what makes them stronger, what makes them weaker. And they said, okay. And they came out to Purdue and they took a bunch of pictures and we tested some joints. So the pictures are in there and the article's in there, but just to kind of go through what I did. First of all, I made everything out of tulip poplar. So the legs are 1.5 inch square, and the aprons they vary in height and thickness, but they're all tulip poplar. And the other thing, when you're doing tests on woodworking joints, especially if it's going to be published or something, you have to worry about the moisture content of the wood, because as wood gains moisture, it actually loses strength. So we want all the wood to be the same moisture content, right around 6 to 8%, which is what, when wood's kiln dried, they usually kiln dried it to that amount. But once it's kiln dried and goes in your house or shop, it's going to raise or lower moisture content depending on what the conditions are in your house. So at Purdue, we have these huge chambers that we can control the temperature and humidity in to keep our wood at constant moisture content. Now, there's different ways to make Mortise and Tenon joints. There's the traditional where you chop out a slot, which would have a square at ends, and then you take your apron and you make a tenon on it with a table saw or bandsaw or something, and that tenon is integral to the apron. But my method is a little bit different. I like to use something called loose tenons, where I actually put a slot in the leg and put a slot in the apron, and then take a tenon and stick it in one, and then it goes in the other. It's just a quicker way to make Mortise and Tenon joints. And I was going to have to make a couple hundred of these, so I wanted to be as efficient as possible. So there again, for me to do it, I didn't want to sit there and chop stuff out. I wanted to try to be able to do it quickly. So at Purdue, we have one of these machines. It's called a multi-router. It's made by JDS, a company down in Georgia. It's pretty expensive machine. It costs about $2,500, which, there's not a whole, it's very well made and very slick and smooth and a lot of stops, a lot of adjustability, but it is a lot of money. And you pay all that money and you don't even get a router with it. You have to buy a router. So that's pretty sad. But, so basically what this is it's a horizontal router, and then there's a table that you'll put your parts on. And I'll actually cut a Mortise and Tenon on this to show you how it works. But you basically put your part in there, you set up your stops, and you move your part around. So the router is fixed. And you're really allowed, I mean, you get extremely accurate parts using this machine.
Is that one yours?
So yeah, so I used to make furniture for a living, and one of my first jobs I got was to make 50 windows. You know, I wanted to make furniture, but somebody called me up and said, well, you make storm windows for my house. And of course, you know, you're gonna take what you can get, but they're all gonna be mortise and tenon together for strength, and I didn't wanna have to do it the old fashioned way, so I told my wife, hey, I got this good job. I want to buy this tool. You know, that's the way to do it, right? So it really made things a lot quicker, and I really like it a lot. So I used to make my mortise and tenons using a table saw or a band saw, and I'll kind of show you my method for doing that. Obviously, I wasn't going to bring a table saw and band saw in here. So first I'll tell you about the results of the test, and then I'll show you how I make the mortise and tenons. So, you know, some stuff is kind of obvious in the results. I made 3 different height aprons, and obviously the taller the apron, the stronger it is. But in this article, it shows you how much stronger it is. So you get an idea on that. Also, I had 3 different widths of aprons. So I kept the legs the same size on everything. 3 different widths, starting with, I forget, a half, or yeah, I think I started with a half and then 3/4, then 1 inch or something like that. Well, obviously, the thicker the part, the stronger it is. So those things were, you know, not surprises at all. But some of the surprises to me was I wanted to also check the depth of insertion on tenon. You know, some people will just make little stubby tenons and think that's okay because it's a mortise and tenon, it's going to be strong. So I did 3 different depths, 3/4 inch, 1, and 1 1/4 inch depth. And was really surprised that the 3/4 is really pretty weak. So let's see where and they call them, yeah, so I wrote this article, and then they go in and edit the article and change a lot. And, you know, I call them up and say, well, why did you change it like that? Well, they really don't have a good reason, but they're going to do what they want to do. So, and I'm happy that they actually published it. So they called it the tenon length. So if you look on page 62, in the middle there, tenon length 3/4, 1, 1 1/4, that table. And you can see that the 3/4 was 250 pounds, the 1 inch was, you know, 130 pounds stronger, so that's 50% stronger. And then the 1 1/4 was 464, so that was really 100% stronger than the 3/4. So you can get twice the strength by just going, you know, a ½ inch deeper, which is pretty amazing to me. So, you know, how deep should you go, I guess, is another question you could ask. So if 1 1/4 inch is really strong, well, what if we put it 3 inches deep and had a big leg on here? Would that make it 500% stronger? Well, one of our professors, Dr. Eckelman, has actually tested that. And he has found that once you go longer than 3 times the thickness of the tenon, it really doesn't add any more to the strength. So that's kind of the maximum point. So say you're using a 3/8 inch wide tenon. So 3 times that would be 1 1/8 inches deep. If you go longer than that, it's really not adding any more to the strength. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Yeah.
How did you fit? Was there slop?
What's that?
Was there lengthwise, looking at the tenon, was there room for them to move before you glued them?
Yeah, there was about a 1/16 of an inch at the bottom of the tenon for the glue to go into, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, actually, along the long axis.
Oh, height-wise, yeah, I did have about a 1/16 of an inch gap on the, well, about a 32nd on the top and bottom.
I mean, typically you don't
Yeah.
force fit those. I just wonder about the ability to take moments there. So
Right.
that really shouldn't be an issue, I would think.
Yeah, I I'm not sure, you know, there's so many different things you could test on this, and I kind of had to narrow the scope down. So some of the stuff I just kept it consistent throughout, like the gap. So what,
Were the tenon corners square going into those round-end mortises, or was it?
no, so here's kind of a view, if you can see it. The whole, the mortise part is got rounded ends, and the tenon has rounded ends also. So, and Fine Woodworking actually did an article like 8 years ago or something on if square corners, if they're stronger than radius corners on tenons, and they are a little bit stronger, but only a couple of %. So you really don't lose anything going to the round corner tenons.
If you took 5 3/4 inch boards from 5 different trees, tested strength-wise,
Yeah.
there's a lot of variation in its poplar.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of variation between tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is going to be some. And yeah, so he's wondering from, if you take tulip poplar and you have 5 different trees and you cut boards from each one, and then you kind of throw them all together, is there going to be variation from tree to tree? And sure, there is, because the trees are going to grow a little bit different. So the thing that you got to do when you're doing tests is do a lot of tests to eliminate that variability. Now, what I did 5 samples of each one. So say I was doing a 3-inch tall apron with certain size tenon in there. I did 5 of those, and then took the average. That's generally about what we do at Purdue. Is about in the wood products department when we test stuff is have sample sizes of 5. I mean, the more sample sizes, obviously, the better data. But I guess you don't want to be there all year doing tests too. So.
How wildly did they vary within the 5?
And I didn't do like a standard deviation or any of that.
Plus minus 10% or 5% or?
Yeah, it wasn't very much. I mean, it was really amazing how when you go to test them and it would break at 200 pounds, you put the next one on and it would break at 205 or 190. I mean, it really was fairly close. There would be the occasional one that would, break at 50 pounds or 300. And truthfully, if it did something like that, I threw it out because it meant that I did something wrong when I glued it together. Also, it could be there's a thing called brash failure in wood, where I don't know what causes it, but the trees are growing, and all of a sudden the fibers across this way are really weak, and you go to break something, it'll break really quick and really easy, and it breaks all the way across the wood. And that's if we see something like that kind of failure, we throw it out of the test. Yes.
Could you spell that word, brash?
Hold up, B-R-A-S-H, brash. Yeah, what's that?
Did you have glue line failures, or was it in the wood?
Yeah, so it was mainly pulling out, most of them. We did have some where the aprons would crack across here. We had some where the legs would crack, but most of them, it was a glue line failure of pulling out.
Where did you apply the pressure on the joint?
What's that?
Where did you apply the pressure?
Yeah, so what we did was we had a steel angle iron going up and down and had the leg clamped to that. So this couldn't move. And we applied a force at 10 inches from the end and applied it right down this way. And we used a computerized testing machine that basically, as it's applying this force, it notices that all of a sudden the force is let up, say 10 pounds or something, and it knows that's a failure, and then it stops, and then it records that amount. So there's some of them that you don't even, you look at it and you think, that really doesn't look like much of a failure. But it has moved, it has loosened up just enough. So I'll pass these around.
What type of glue?
Yeah, so glue is important, the kind of glue you're using, and I wanted to be consistent across this. I wasn't testing the glues, so I just used Type Bond 1 for everything, and I actually used the same glue bottle too to make sure, you know, that variability was thrown out. So fine woodwork, there's been a lot of tests on glues, which ones are best, which ones are not, and fine woodworking there again did a test 10 years ago or something, and they found that just the PVA glues are really strong. Gorilla Glue, the polyurethane glues, they found were, I think, about half as strong as PVA glues, which I think really hurt Gorilla Glue at that time, because said they, you know, what they say, the strongest glue on earth or something like that, and then that test came out and really kind of disproved that. And then they tested like epoxy and all sorts of different things. I think hide glues and stuff, but really PVA was right up there. You know, it was a little weaker than epoxy, but not that much. It's not worth, you know, going to the trouble, I guess, of using epoxy, in my opinion. So one thing too I wanted to test, I had actually, you know, you guys have probably taken woodworking classes, and I took one from a real well-known, respected woodworker, and we were doing mortise and tenon joints, and he said, you only have to glue the tenon. You apply glue on the tenon and insert it in there. And I thought, well, I've seen a lot of people do it both ways. You know, what's right? Do you lose a lot of strength by doing that? And so I tested a bunch of, you know, there again, I don't know how many joints, 5 of them, where I just glued both parts, 5 of them where I just glued the tenon, and 5 of them where I just glued the mortise. And you lose about half the strength when you just glue one side. It's amazing how much of a good it is. So, you know, take the time to apply. We all are in a hurry, but you've invested all that time into making all these joints, you might as well put a little glue everywhere. And another thing I didn't have to worry about was squeeze out, because these were not fine pieces of furniture, so I didn't clean them out. The glue squeezed out, and they're landed. The other thing is kind of the fit of the joint. How tight does it have to be? Does that glue fill the gap, and will it hold it together if you're a little sloppy with the joints? So the tenons I made, I actually, you know, used calipers to measure it to make sure it was exact, and so I made some that were within. So that, say that I was using a 0.375 mortise, the tenons I would make 0.370. And then I made some that were 0.365. And so I attached those and tested the gap. So 5 1,000ths or 10 1,000ths. And 10 1,000ths, let's see, I think I got it. On page 62, the loss, going from 5 1,000ths to 10 1,000ths, it lost 21% of its strength. So, you know, that's a fifth of its strength, and you can barely feel when it's 10 1,000ths. You know, it goes in pretty easy, and if you were to, say, make a joint with 10 1,000ths gaps and put the 2 parts together and hold them like this with no glue in it, the part's going to fall off. That's one way to sort of test it. Yeah?
Dan, is this 10 1,000ths on the thickness versus the total?
Yeah,
on the width?
Right. This is on the thickness.
Okay.
So, so these are 3/8 thick, and I made them 5 1,000ths less than that. So, like I said, you put the parts together and it falls out. You can just, that's the 10 1,000ths gap. If it's 5 1,000ths, pretty much you put them together and you hold them up and they'll stay there. The friction's just enough to keep it. And another thing is when you go to put it together with just that small gap, you can put it together with hand pressure, but when it gets closer to the end, it's a little bit tight, and you might have to get a clamp to put it, to drive it on, or hammer it or something like that. Whereas a 10-1000, you can just boom it together. Yes?
It is true, though, that you do need some gap. You need that 5,000?
Well, it just makes it easier to put together. You know, I would say, I think a little bit of gap just to make it easy, but I would not go any more than that after these tests. Yeah.
I saw some little tips the old timers would use, either playing cards or a business card to have the same, if you didn't have the mic, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would, you know, highly recommend, you know, now, I do, when I do my woodworking, I use this tool a lot. Jim, I'm sure, probably does too, being a machinist, but,
Micrometers, too.
micrometers too.
Adding to the business card, that's about 15,000.
15? Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be,
It's in the ballpark.
yeah, so that would be more sloppy to me.
Yeah.
What can you
So
do if
good.
you?
Skinny business card.
What's that?
What can you do if you have the gap?
So yeah, a lot of times I'll make stuff and you put all this time into it and all of a sudden this tenon is too narrow or maybe that slot has gotten a little wider than what I thought. So what I do is I'll just take a piece of veneer and glue it on the face of this. And then, you know, if that's enough, then I'm done. If now all of a sudden it's a little too tight, then I just sand it a little bit and I'm done. A lot of times on my tenons, I mean, I'm at Purdue, we have the big belt sander that you can dial in exactly the thickness you're going for, so it's pretty easy. But when you're just using a planer to thickness your parts, a lot of times it's going to be off a little bit. So to me, the good way to go, I didn't bring my plane, but say this one's just a little bit thick, I'll put it on a bench hook, take my plane and just slice, you know, a couple slices and then measure it again. Or stick it in the hole and see how it feels. Let's see. So obviously tulip poplar is not the strongest wood in the world. I mean, that's something else that I wrote for the article, but they didn't include it. And, you know, they wanted it to fit in a certain area. But you want, the stronger the wood you use, the stronger the joints are going to be. So there are lots of books about how strong different species are, and you can look those up too. One thing I would be interested to know is if I did a loose tenon, say with tulip poplar parts, but then I made my tenon out of maple or something, is that going to be stronger? I don't know. But I didn't want to test all that because that would get to be a little bit too much.
Yeah, essentially what you're doing is what the domino does.
Yeah, it is. Which would be, I think, a really interesting thing to test those too. So maybe I can write something up and then Purdue will buy a domino for us too.
So if you get to think about writing it up, I would say contact Festu.
Yeah.
They will probably get you one.
Okay. Well, you want to write up with me and we'll call them? You probably already have one, don't you?
I'm thinking about getting one.
Yeah.
I used one in that big pew project down in our house.
Yeah.
That's what we jointed that whole pew project with.
Wow.
They could bring us the second 5,000 dominoes.
Wow.
We've used almost 10,000 dominoes in this project.
So that means that a biscuit for that joint is probably not going to be very good.
No, biscuits are really pretty weak. And so there again, Fine Woodworking did an article where they tested biscuit joints versus dowels versus tenons. And biscuits were I think biscuits may have been right up there with weakness to butt joints. Just gluing the boards together. I mean, it was It was pretty weak.
Didn't biscuit just help?
Biscuit's alignment, isn't it? Just mostly.
What's that?
Isn't biscuit mostly just for alignment?
Yeah, that's the way I use a biscuit mainly is just to align the boards. So when you're edge gluing them or something, it's a lot easier to align them.
Is there anything out there in Craig joints? Where you drive the screw in there?
Yeah, there has been testing on that too, and it's stronger than a biscuit, but it's still it's weaker than a mortise and tenon or dowel joint. Yes.
Matthias has got a video. You know how he loves crickets.
Oh
He's
yeah.
got a video on testing that.
Well, Matthias Waddell is that his last name or Wandell? I don't know if you guys have seen him, but he's got a lot of YouTube videos and has a good website. But I'm sure he's got a multi-router design on there. I mean, he comes up with all these kind of crazy. He even made his own bandsaw stuff. So you could probably go on his site and find some cool plans and make your own. I imagine.
Dan, he's built 3 bandsaws. The last one was a 20-inch. And he does have 2 different machines that will do that. And one of them, a fellow in Japan copied it and made it out of aluminum and was going to pay a royalty. So I said, no, just send me a machine. So now you have one. It's a beautiful machine. Panorama, it's called.
Okay, Panther router. Yeah.
I have plans for the 2 panoramas,
Uh-huh.
in case somebody wants to borrow them.
Okay, cool.
I've made about 3/4 of the parts to put it together.
Yeah.
And got busy doing something else, so if somebody wants to play with it, let me know.
The other thing that I thought was interesting was, I said something about butt joints, but when I glued these together and was testing them all, there would always be a little failure right around, say, 100 pounds of force. You'd hear a click, and that was that butt joint was losing it, lost lots of adhesion at that point. So it was interesting. You'd always hear that little click. So obviously a butt joint, is not a real strong way to go.
Well, that's where your max moment there at the top, so that would be a reasonable place to fail.
Yeah. So how do you guys make your mortise and tenon joints, I guess? Table saws, band saws, routers, or chop them out? Table saws? Okay. So that's really, a great way to go. I brought this, you guys probably have these or have seen them. For a long time, this is what I used on my table saw. And it works decent, but it seems like they would kind of vary. It wouldn't be really accurate from part to part. But basically what this does, it holds your part vertically. You can dial it in and adjust it left and right. First thing you should do though when you're making your mortise and tenon, or you're making your tenons, would be to use a marking gauge and actually mark the line. So say I'm making 3/4 inch tenons, I would make a couple of marks, then I'll take my calipers and I'll measure those marks and see if I'm pretty close to, say, 3/8 of an inch. If I'm not, I'll move the marks over, get that just right, put the part on here, and then line it up with my table saw, make a slot, turn it over, make another slot. If you're doing that, you're going to get some blowout in the back, so it's helpful to put a little board in the back to stop that. And then after you use that, then I'll use the table saw to cut the shoulders on it. So I'll just use my miter gauge, and obviously you want that to be 90 degrees to your blade. And I'll just push it across the blade, cut the shoulders, flip it over, cut the other one, and then stand it up and do the end shoulders here. Yeah.
You do mortise first and fit the tenon to it?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the better way to do, right? So I'll make these, if I'm doing them on a table saw or bandsaw, I'm going to make them a little bit thick. That way I can plane this down and get it to fit just right.
That's why you have the 73?
Yeah. So you know, you try to dial it right in and you're gonna mess up. I mean, plus, like I said, I don't think these jigs are that accurate. So, you know, it doesn't take long. You gotta take a hand plane, swipe a few slots off, go to the other side, swipe a few off, and then measure it and test it. The other way to cut them is on the bandsaw. So for the bandsaw, you know, it's similar, but say this is my fence here, and I'm just gonna slide the part on there, turn it over, slide it there. Got my shoulders. I probably would put if I'm doing a bunch of them, I put some sort of stop, clamp a stop onto here. So I stop at the shoulder, turn it over, stop at the shoulder. And then I'll still go to my table saw to actually make these cuts. Just place to go. I mean, a lot of people might use hand tools, hand saws, or some chisels, but for me, I mean, I would rather use a power tool and get it done a little quicker. But like I said, now I don't like to make the integral tenons because, well, one reason I guess I don't like to is because a lot of my parts are angled and not 90 degrees. So if I'm making some sort of chair or something where the parts are angled, it's a little harder to do that with the miter gauge and cutting across for the shoulders. Because you have to get those angles just perfect both directions. You know, if they're a little bit off, and all of a sudden you have one shoulder on one side going this way, the other shoulder is not parallel with that.
That's what the Incra jig is for.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. If you don't, that thing,
yeah,
throw that out. Buy you one from Incra. There's another brand too. They're so much better. They're amazing.
Yeah, these, you know, you just gotta loosen this hand knob and slide it around, you know, and try to get it just right. But
plus it wobbles in the slot.
Yeah.
It just.
So the Incra has built-in stops on it.
Yeah, and it has little adjusters so that the bar is always perfect. It's touching both sides of the slot at the same time, and it's just right there. No play, no nothing.
They have a 10th of a degree too.
10th of a degree.
10th of a degree.
Wow. Okay, that's what I'll get.
Helps. Makes it really cool.
But so instead of me having an anchor jig, what I do is I just cut this. I have I call it a loose tenon, where the tenon goes in here. So I'll just cut this part at an angle, one cut on the table saw, and then I'll take that and go to my multi-router or something and do the slot on the end. So it's pretty easy. You also could make, instead of having this, the hardest part to me is making a slot on the end. If you don't have this, how do you do it? So one way would be to make a jig that goes up and then 90 degrees, it holds your part onto it. And on the top part, it would have a slot that would correspond with the slot you're making. And then I would use a hand router where I put the router on top of that board, and I probably have a collar that goes in that slot and go plunge in, go across, plunge in, go across. That's how I used to do it. But I would have to, for different size tenons, I would have to have different boards that went on the top. And that's, yeah, a little bit cumbersome, I guess. But, so I'll show you guys this thing. I'll cut a little bit. And then I'll show you a couple other ways to make them. How are we doing on time?
10:15.
Okay.
Hey, do you always use those carbide spiral bits?
Yeah, so I use the carbide spiral bit. That's a up one, and there's sometimes, you know, when they don't say on there if they're up or down, trying to figure out if they're up or down, always kind of had to go to the computer and say, look at it. But finally I figured out the router's spinning clockwise. If you take that bit and you turn it clockwise and it looks like it would drill right into it, that's an up spiral. So the up spiral is going to pull those chips out and clean itself out. So, all right, I'm gonna try to move this.
Is that a loader tool?
What?
He bought it, he said it needed.
Well, yeah, Purdue's got one and
If you load it out, what's the rental?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. Come over to my shop, you can use it, I don't care.
You're never home, what do you mean?
I'll leave it unlocked for you.
What do you use for the stop?
So there's a lot of stops on this thing. You can adjust this up or down, and then it's got a little stop here.
You've got a little stop right there.
Yeah, there's a little ledge right on the end so you can put the board up against the edge. And then there's holes in the top that you can put little plastic stops for lining it up this way. And at break, you guys can come up here and take a look at it. So I've lined up the height ways. There's a depth stop right here, which you can adjust, which is a little bit tricky to get in and adjust it. I've got stops here for making the width of the tenon. So say I was going to make it that wide. Tighten that one. Go over here. And all the tenons I made for the article, I had a 3/8 inch shoulder at the end of the tenon. I just wanted to be consistent, and that's what I did. You know, that would be another thing I suppose you could definitely test is your shoulder amount on each end. So I've got that set. It's going to cut about a 2-inch or so wide tenon, and I'm going to go about 1 inch or so deep. One thing that I found on this is if I try to hog all the material out and go across, you know, and the thing will really start screaming, that bit will start flexing and doesn't give you a consistent width of your tenon. So it's best to just, you know, I do a lot of passes.
What horsepower?
So this is just a 1.5 horsepower, so it's a smaller router, but it works fine as long as I'm doing those lighter passes. And then, so it's got these two things, and that can be a little bit, you know, it takes a while to figure out how to move it around. So I got that really close to the edge. I didn't line up the height real well. So that's pretty close to the edge of it. You want it to be more centered than that. But it does cut it out really clean. You know, the other thing to watch out for is when that bit starts burning and starts burning the wood. Burnt wood does not accept glue very well, so it's going to definitely be a weaker joint at that point too. So you want to, you know, if your bit starts getting black or something, you better turn it off, clean up your bit, or throw it away because it's just not going to cut a good joint. So pass that around.
Dan, just for curiosity's sake, did you ever compare, you know, tenons, you know, loose tenons versus an intricate tenon?
You know, I only did loose tenons on this article and didn't compare the two, but Fine Woodworking actually did an article and did compare the two, and it only lost about 2% strength going from an integral tenon to a loose tenon. So it's really not very much at all. You know, I think 2% is really
Fully acceptable in the speed that you cut these.
yeah, it is.
When you talk loose tenon, you're not talking about big floppy.
No, I'm talking about it goes in both
Like you
holes.
have a mortise in both pieces.
Right, yeah, and it's gonna get glued in both sides. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird way to call it. I don't know, maybe a better term for it.
I've heard of using what they call loose tenons, you know, still cut a regular mortise tenon, but make it really loose to fill with glue.
Oh, yeah, well, glue is not gonna fill those gaps. You know, even polyurethane glue, like they said it was a lot weaker than what you'd think, but, you know, it expands, and so you think, well, I can be sloppy and fill it with that, but it's not gonna help you.
Well, but isn't the problem with with the Gorilla Glues, the fact that it actually foams?
Yeah, I don't know. Charles wonders if the foaming action makes the Gorilla Glue less strong, and I don't know. That could be. One thing that I didn't test also was pin tenons or wedge tenons, which would have expanded a lot. But Fine Woodworking did an article there again a while back, and they tested wedge tenons and pin, and I would have thought they would have been stronger, but they found that a wedge tenon was about 15% weaker, and a pin tenon was about 20% weaker. So putting those things in weakens it. I mean, it looks good, so I can't argue with that. I like the looks of it. But anytime you're going to put a hole in something, you're going to make it weaker. Or anytime you're going to cut a slot in something, you're going to make the part weaker. So. Yeah.
The real name for that loose tenon, domino?
Well, dominoes, yeah, I mean, that's in essence what they do, but that's their trade name. So another method of doing the slots, the mortises, would be just a hand router. And I have a fence on here that's adjustable. So I took two boards here, and I'm only making a slot in one of them, but I clamped two boards together so I have a little bit more of something to sit it on so it's not sloppy. So basically, let's see what I've got this set up for. So my depth, I got to adjust that a little bit. So I'm not going to hog this out either. Well, first of all, I should probably draw where it's going to go. But I don't have a pencil, so we'll just assume I know where it's supposed to go, and then I won't be wrong when you look. So here, if I'm doing it with a hand router, what I want to do is I'm going to plunge in at one end, move it over, plunge in at the other, and then I'm going to slowly take away the material in the middle. And I might do it in 1/8 or 1/4 inch passes. So, see how this goes. Well, that's not on. It was a lot better if you plug it in.
I don't like that stick board chest.
So that's a pretty stubby little mortise, but oh well, you see how they do it anyway. Yeah.
Looks like it's gonna fall off your router.
So that's one way to do it with a hand router. That's a fairly simple way. Hopefully everybody has access to a hand router. The other way I would do it would be on a table. So if you guys have router tables, that makes it pretty easy too. I made this one this winter, so I thought it'd be fun to bring it in and show it off too. So gotta change bits on this. I guess I'll change bits on it. Maybe I can show you how I do it on here after the break. So, and then we'll have show and tell. And how are we doing on shirts? Lois still here? All right. So with that, I guess I'll just kind of show you my router table here. So the other way that you can make mortises is with a router table. This particular one I made this past winter, and I got a lift from woodpeckers and 3 1/4 or 3.5 horse motor from Porter Cable to put in it. It's a really nice router lift. I like it a lot. It's got a dial here for micro adjusting the height of the router bit, and it's got a quick adjustment. Oh, got stuff in the way. Got a quick adjustment. All you do is you have this handle here, and you put it in the hole. Spin it, and you can bring it up and down. So you can bring it above the table to change a bit. Bring it down, let go, and there you are. So it's a nice feature. And yeah, I like it. So let me just show you how I would make mortises using this. So I've set up a couple of stops here on my fence. My fence is locked in. And take a board. And I've only got the router bit sitting up, probably not even a 1/4 inch. Yeah, I want to do this incrementally. I don't want to do it, hog it out. But I would put the board up against this fence on the left side, drop it down, push it over, come back, lift it up, raise the router bit. I'll just do it once here. And if I have the dust collector hooked up here, it sucks this board even tighter to the fence, which is nice. I've got a T-slot here, which I can put feather boards in, which is helpful. Anytime you can put feather boards to help hold your parts. It's better than holding your fingers close to here to try to hold it in there. So, you know, it's really a good way to go. So if I didn't have this machine, I probably would use this method mainly to cut my mortises. Let's see, I think I've about covered everything on this topic. I don't know if you guys think of anything else. Yeah, Rick?
Somebody asked me, why do you go from left to right?
Well, the way the bit's spinning, you're pushing it against, the bit, the way it's spinning, wants to push the wood this way. And so you're pushing against the bit. Whereas if you try to do it the other way, you're pushing, and the way the bit's going can cause the board to come quicker that way. So most times when you're cutting wood, you're going against the direction of the cut. Kind of like a table saw. The table saw is spinning toward you, and you're pushing it over. So the blade is pushing it toward you, and you're pushing it over. If you try to do it the other way, it's going to want to. You don't have much control with
They
it.
call it a radial arm when you try to do it.
Yeah. Radio arm saws, that's why they're scary, because it's, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, that's all we got for today, so.